If you currently own a Nintendo Switch, you most likely played games online against other players around the world. But back in the 1980s and 90s, Nintendo was trying to enter into the online arena early on and beat its competitors. This is where Sierra plays a major role in this. You might have heard or even played some of Sierra's giant library of classic adventure games. Zero's Mystery House, Space Quest, and Police Quest. They even have King's Quest V on the NES, published by Konami. This game was really impressive at the time. It's not easy to put the PC version of the game into a cartridge, but at least it worked out in the end. Anyways, the computer game developer and publisher rarely ever ventured into the realm of Nintendo, despite the company's dominance in the North America console market at the time. But as Ken Williams, the founder, recently revealed in an exclusive interview with Time Extension, this was nearly not the case. Ken and his wife, who was also the co-founder of Sierra, Roberta, spent a lot of time holding a number of talks with Nintendo of America's president Minoru Arakawa over the years in order to join forces. Ken recalls, "There were lots of talks and lots of mutual interest, but nothing ever came together. I had talked to Minoru Arakawa, the guy who ran Nintendo of America, and we had talked quite a bit, and we always intended to get something done. But our games wouldn't fit on cartridges, and the kids at the time who were playing cartridge games wanted action shooters. They really didn't want a thinking game." Anyways, there were other reasons why Sierra might be a bit nervous to re-enter the cartridge market. In 1982, Ken got advice from a number of venture capitalists. The company started switching development from home computers to the home console market just prior to the video game crash in 1983. This led Ken to distance himself from this portion of the market. Ken says, "We almost went out of business doing cartridges, so I want nothing to do with that business. I was happy to say, here, you believe in the cartridge market? Write me a check for 100K, you go do it, and then give me a buck a cartridge. That way, my downside was 100K and my upside was unlimited, so it was a much better business model for us." Surprisingly, it doesn't seem like these discussions were exclusively about software, as highlighted by an old Press Tribune article syndicated from the New York Times from June of 1991. That article states that the two companies almost collaborated together on an online network, which we have to imagine is what eventually became the Sierra Network. This was a short-lived service from Sierra that allowed individuals to play parlor games, RPGs, and flight simulators together with other people over a shared network, but it appears Nintendo passed on this opportunity. Nintendo has always been toying with the idea of starting an online game network since 1989, and has held discussions with Sierra about the possibility of joining forces. It was mostly Hiroshi Yamauchi, president of Nintendo Japan, that was floating around the idea of taking Nintendo online. So what happened after that? If you're wondering why Nintendo passed on the service like this for the North American market, you only need to look at the company's official response to Sega Channel years later. In a Sun Sentinel article dated April 1993, the Nintendo spokeswoman Perrin Kaplan said the reply to Sega's newly announced service, "We have been looking at something like this since 1988. We rejected something very similar because we think ultimately it will hurt retailers." To give a brief summary, the Sega Channel is a device that allows you to play games over a cable network provided by TCI and Time Warner Cable. In the end, a deal never took place. It's interesting to think what would happen if Nintendo and Sierra did develop a closer relationship. Will we have seen more of the company's games like Space Quest, Leisure Suit Larry, and Quest for Glory on Nintendo's platforms? Or a Nintendo equivalent to Sega Channel? And if so, what would they have looked like? If you have an opinion on this issue, let me know in the comment section. Honestly, the concept of Nintendo going online is interesting, but it probably would not have worked out since the World Wide Web was still quite young at the time.
Bummer.
This kind of reminds me of the Virtual Boy. VR is a very interesting concept, but the technology wasn't there at the time. Eventually, Nintendo managed to work around the concept of online experience for the Japanese market, called Satellaview, for the Super Famicom in 1995 until 2000. So how did the device last for 5 years? Well, it was because Japan was a smaller market and easy to manage since it's just one market, whereas, for example, the US market is still very tough to manage because of the higher population, having different laws in different states, and a different perspective on the whole online thing. Anyways, that's going to wrap up this video. See you guys next time, and thanks for watching.